All right, so in this video, we are going to look through each of the problems from the Unit 1 review in Illuminate. You can either watch the video in its entirety, or you can skip to whichever questions you need to see worked out. For question 1, we're looking to simplify -3 root 3 minus root 8 minus root 3. Remember that with addition and subtraction of radicals, you must have like radicands. So if you're looking at what you have currently, you do have like radicands with the -3 root 3 and the negative root 3. Remember that there is this invisible 1 sitting in front of that square root when you don't see it. So when you combine them, you're going to follow what the signs tell you to do. So it's -3 minus 3, which would be -4 root 3, because the square root does not change when you add or subtract, and then minus root 8. As of right now, we cannot combine the -4 root 3 and the negative root 8, but we do need to try to simplify that square root 8 to see if maybe we can combine it. So we're going to do our factor tree for 8, breaks down to 2 and 4, and then 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. So we have a couple of 2's that are going to come outside, and then we have a single of 2 that will stay inside. So we have -4 root 3 minus 2 root 2. So because those are not like radicands, we cannot combine them into a single radicand, so that is going to be your answer, which is answer choice C. For question 2, we are simplifying the square root of 392. 392 may not be a number that you're very familiar with, but because it is even, then you do know that it's divisible by 2. So that would be where I would start with this particular problem. We'll start with 392, and we're going to divide 392 by 2, which if you can do that off the top of your head, that's awesome. If you need to use a calculator, you can definitely use a calculator. It's going to be 196. And then we're going to break down 196. Again, it's even, so I would probably divide by 2 again, although it has other factors. That's kind of up to you. That's going to be 2 and 98. I'm going to cross off the numbers that I've broken down. You can already see we've got a pair of 2's. 98 can be broken down some more. I'm going to do 2 and 49. 49 is 7 and 7. So I have a couple of 2's and I also have a couple of 7's. Remember that couples are going to go on the outside of the square root and they're going to get multiplied. So I'm going to multiply 2 and 7, which is going to make 14 on the outside, or as the coefficient of my radical. On the inside will be my single, and I have a single of 2. So 14 root 2, which is answer choice C. For question 3, we are multiplying. When multiplying radicals, you do not have to have the same radicand. You can multiply coefficients, which in this case would be 4 and -4, and 4 times -4 is -16. And then you multiply the radicands, 15 and 3. So you can go ahead and do 15 times 3 and write 45, or as we talked about in class, you can leave it as 15 times 3 because your first step is going to be to break down 45, and so you could break it down to 15 and 3. But you could also use 9 and 5 if you prefer. It doesn't matter. Use whatever pair of factors that you prefer. 15 will break down to 5 and 3, and then at that point, those are all prime numbers, so we're done breaking it down. So we have a couple of 3's. That 3 is going to go on the outside, and because we have that -16 on the outside, that -16 needs to get multiplied by the 3 that you pull out. And on the inside, we've got that single of 5. So -16 times 3 is -48, and then square root of 5. So answer choice B. For question 4, we are subtracting. We must have like radicands in order to combine, so you have to simplify them individually. You cannot put them together yet. So I'm going to kind of do my work over here on the left side. I'm going to start with 75. That can be broken down to 3 and 25, and then 25 can be broken down to 5 and 5. So I'm going to have a couple of 5s that comes out. It's going to need to get multiplied by that 7 that's already there. So this is going to turn to 35 square root, and my single is 3, so root 3. Minus, and then let's break down that 20. 20 is 4 and 5, and 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. So I've got a couple of 2's, which is going to go on the outside. There's no coefficient there, so it's just going to be minus 2 square root, and that single is a 5. So when we look at these, the radicands are 3 and 5. They are not like, so you cannot combine these together. So it will be just 35 root 3 minus 2 root 5, which is answer choice B. For question 5, it says find the area of a rectangle whose length is 7 root 20 meters and the width is 12 root 75 meters. Write your answer in simplest radical form. Area is length times width. So to do this problem, we're going to need to multiply the 7 root 20 times the 12 root 75. Because it's multiplication, you can go ahead and put those together. So we're going to multiply the 7 and the 12, which will make 84. And then we're going to multiply the 20 and the 75. Now on this one, I'm not going to multiply them and get that number. I'm going to leave it as 20 times 75 because I'm going to break that down anyways. So 20 is going to break down to 2 and 10. 10 is going to break down to 2 and 5. 75 is going to break down to 3 and 25. And then 25 breaks down to 5 and 5. Now if we're looking for couples, we have a couple of 2's and a couple of 5's. So the couple of 2 and the couple of 5 are going to get multiplied to give you 10, and then that 10 has to get multiplied to that 84 that's already sitting out there, so that's going to become 840. On the inside, we're looking for our singles, which we have 3 and 5, and those are going to get multiplied together to give us 15. So it would be 840 square root 15 square meters. For question 6, we are looking for all the rational expressions. So remember that in order for it to be rational, it can be an integer, a whole number, a decimal that ends or repeats. It can be a fraction, or it can be a perfect square. So for A, that is a non-terminating and non-repeating decimal, so this would not be rational, it would be irrational. B is negative 8 pi. Because pi is irrational, negative 8 times an irrational number is still going to be irrational. For C, the square root of 47. The square root of 47 is not a perfect square because there is no number multiplied by itself that equals 47. So because it's not a perfect square, it is also irrational. Negative square root of 121. The square root of 121 is 11 because 11 times 11 is 121. So that makes this negative 11, which is indeed a rational number. 3.14, as it sits, is a terminating decimal, so that is rational. 57.65, again, a terminating decimal, so that is also rational. On question 7, it says, Maddie told her friend that the product of two rational numbers is always rational. Which equation could she use to help support her claim? So we want to find the one that has two rational numbers, and we want their product to still be rational. So on A, the square root of 2 is irrational. So A is an irrational times an irrational equals a rational. So that does not support her claim. So it's definitely not A. I'm having an issue writing here, sorry. Mark that one out. On B, 4 pi is irrational, and that's times a rational, but that equals an irrational. So that also does not support her claim. On C, 1/3 is rational, 9 is rational, and so is 3. So definitely looks like C is the correct answer choice. D, root 3 over 8 is irrational, so it's not D. So C is our choice. On question 8, we are looking for which one is not a rational number. Okay, so which one is not a rational number? The product of 2 and the square root of 2. Product means to multiply, so if you do 2 times the square root of 2, that's going to give you 2 root 2, which is not a rational number. If you look at B, the sum, so if you add 2 plus root 3 and 5 minus root 3, what's going to happen is this root 3 minus root 3 is actually going to be 0, and so you're going to have 2 plus 5, which is 7. So that is going to be rational. On C, if you add, because it's a sum of 3/7 and 1/2, if you add two rational numbers, you will get a rational number. We could do a common denominator if you want a 14, which to get 14, you have to multiply 7 by 2. So multiply 3 by 2, which is 6. And then 1/2, I'd have to multiply by 7. So that becomes 7. So 6 over 14 plus 7 over 14 is 13 over 14. That is rational. And the product of 2 and 0.3 repeating, product means multiply. So 2 times 0.3 repeating is 1/3. So 2 times 1/3 is 2/3, which is still rational. And again, you didn't have to go through and get all of these answers. I just wanted to show you that B, C, and D are all rational numbers, but A is irrational. What is the sum of 4x squared plus x minus 8 and x squared plus 9 expressed as a trinomial? So what you need to know is that sum means addition, so hopefully at this point you know what that means. And when adding polynomials, we can only combine like terms. So because it's the sum, like you can write it out with an addition sign in between. When we want to make sure that we only locate like terms, we always want to write our answer in standard form. So we're going to start with the highest exponent, which is squared. So I have a 4x squared and I have a plus x squared. Remember, there's an invisible 1 right there. So 4 plus 1 is 5, and when we add, the exponent stays the same, so it's still x squared. Next, we're going to look at our next highest exponent, which would just be x, and it does not have a like term, so we are just going to put plus x behind the 5x squared. And then finally, we are going to look at our constants. We have a -8 plus 9, and -8 plus 9 is a +1. So what is the sum expressed as a trinomial? 5x squared plus x plus 1. It does have 3 terms, which means it's a trinomial, so that is a good thing. So number 10, you want to be really careful on this one. Make sure you read it carefully and make sure you do this in the correct order. What is the result when 3a squared minus 7a plus 6 is subtracted from 4a squared minus 3a plus 4. So what that means is we're doing 4a squared minus 3a plus 4, and then we are subtracting 3a squared minus 7a plus 6. With subtraction, we talked about the importance of making sure you distribute that negative to all of the terms behind it because you're subtracting each of those terms. So that's going to switch all of the signs. So what we're going to have here is the 4a squared minus 3a plus 4, and then we're going to subtract 3a squared. We're going to subtract a negative 7a squared, which is going to become positive 7a, and then we're going to subtract a positive 6, which is going to become negative 6. And then now I'm just going to look down these columns. So 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Negative 3a plus 7 is a positive 4a. And then finally, 4a squared minus 3a is a positive a squared. So a squared plus 4a minus 2, leaving us with answer choice B. Which expression is equivalent to x minus 2 times x minus 1? So in this one, we are multiplying. If you remember from when we talked about this, we talked about, well, what if this minus 2 wasn't there? What would you do with that x? And you guys were all very easy, all willingly told me we need to distribute. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do x times x and then x times negative 1. Don't forget that when you do x times x, they have that invisible exponent of 1. So x times x is x squared. And then x times negative 1 is negative 1x or negative x. You can write it however you want. Just note in your answer, you would not see that 1 there. It would just say negative x. But the reality is we do have a minus 2 there. So now that we've distributed the x, now we're going to distribute that negative 2 as well. This was also what we called foiling, if you remember right. Either way, it doesn't matter as long as you remember to distribute, you're doing the same thing. So FOIL, the F was first, so that was the x times x. The O was outside, so that's the x times negative 1. The I in FOIL means inside, so that's what we're getting ready to do with negative 2 times x, which is negative 2x. And then the L is for last, that's negative 2 times negative 1. Make sure you multiply, which is positive 2. Don't make the mistake of adding and putting negative 3. I see that all the time. So after you distribute or after you FOIL, you want to look for like terms. Most of the time, your two middle terms, your outside and your inside, or your OI, you'll be able to combine those together. So it's going to give us x squared. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. X stays the same. And then plus 2. So that is your final answer, which matches up to option C. Polynomial y is shown, 1/2 x to the 6 plus 3x plus 8. Which of the following can be subtracted from y to demonstrate the closure of polynomials under subtraction? So to review what closure means, it just means that if you do an operation, in this case subtraction, with the same type of, I don't want to say numbers, but items, then you will get that same type of number out. So since we have a polynomial, we have to choose another polynomial in order for this to be closed, because what it's saying is that if you take a polynomial and subtract a polynomial, you'll get a polynomial. So you want to go through your list of choices and find the one that is a polynomial. If you don't remember what a polynomial is, it is one of the things that we did on the very first day of notes. Polynomials had to have exponents that were whole numbers. They could not be negative exponents, so that takes out option A. You could not have what's the right word? You can't have the variable in the denominator, so that takes out B. And then you could not have your exponent be a variable, so that takes out option D. So the only one of those that is a polynomial is option C. In my 19 years of teaching, I think question 13 is probably the most missed concept for students. you're asked to simplify 6x plus 1 squared. And so what a lot of students do is they try to distribute that square, but that's not what distribute means. Distributing is for when you are multiplying a number times multiple things, and squaring is not what that is. Squaring means to multiply by itself. So 6x plus 1 squared means 6x plus 1 times 6x plus 1. And now this looks like the problem that we did just a few minutes ago, where you need to FOIL or distribute. So we're going to take this 6x and multiply it by 6x. So 6 times 6 is 36, and x times x, don't forget those invisible ones there, is x squared. Make sure you put that x squared. Then you're going to distribute the 6x to the 1. 6x times 1 is 6x. Now you're going to go to the positive 1, and you're going to distribute the positive 1. 1 times 6x is also 6x. And 1 times 1, make sure you do multiplication, not addition, is 1. From there, you're looking for like terms. Most of the time, your OI, your outside and your inside, your two middle terms are going to be able to be combined. So my 36x squared is going to come down. 6x plus 6x is 12x. Stays x, it doesn't change, and then bring down that constant of 1. So option B is your correct choice. Most people will choose option A. Don't fall for it. You will most likely see a problem like this again, so make sure you know how to properly do this. Okay, so we've got a couple questions where we're going to be interpreting parts of our expression. So we've got a table that shows 4 different items and their cost from a hardware store. And then we're told that Martina goes to the hardware store and buys a combination of the items in the table. The total amount that she spent on the items given is given by that expression 2.55a plus 15.79b plus 18.85c plus 22.99d. Write the term from the expression that represents the amount Martina spent on light bulbs. So we want to go up to that table and find light bulbs, which is right here. And light bulbs are $2.55 each. But the question is, write the term. Okay, so this has 4 terms. And that is going to express the total that she spent on light bulbs. So if you look for the $2.55, A is your term. So $2.55 is the cost of each light bulb. A is the number of light bulbs. So $2.55, A is the total cost of all the light bulbs. All right, another problem where we're interpreting parts of this expression. It says Gloria has some money at the start of July. During the month of July, she works 8 hours at a certain hourly wage. She goes to M movies. Each movie costs the same amount. She does not spend any other money during the month of July. The total amount of money in dollars Gloria has at the end of July is described by the expression below, 9H minus 7M plus 120. What do the different parts of the expression represent? And you guys in Illuminate will drag and drop these items into the appropriate place. All right, so you don't have to go in the order that they're given. If you're not sure about some of them, do the ones you know. So for instance, to me, where it says the amount of money that Gloria is paid per hour, well, we know H represents the number of hours that she works. So the number in front of H, which is 9, should represent her hourly pay. And together, 9H is going to be that amount of money that she is going to earn in July. We know M is the number of movies, so the number attached to the M, which is 7, should be the cost per movie. Now, the reason that it's being subtracted is because that's money she's spending. So it's important to make sure that we subtract the 7. The 7M together is the total amount that she spends on the movies. And so by process of elimination, that leaves us with $120, and that would be how much she had at the beginning of the month. And you could have easily gone in order from left to right. It's just a matter of making sure you pick the ones you're most confident with, and then if there's ones you're not as sure, then just kind of use process of elimination to help you find out those specific answers. All right, another interpretation problem. For a parent-teacher meeting, Mr. Stanton buys P bottles of punch at X dollars each and T trays of assorted appetizers at Y dollars each. The expression PX plus TY shows the total amount Mr. Stanton spent on food and beverage. Interpret the meaning of each term. Be careful, it doesn't say each variable, it says each term. So this expression has two terms. It has PX and then it has TY. So we're going to interpret what PX means and what TY means. So just to review, P is the number of bottles of punch and X is the cost. So if you put those together and multiply those together, that's going to be the total cost of punch. And again, I'm sorry the handwriting's so bad. I'm using my finger because my stylus isn't working. For TY, T is your trays of assorted appetizers and Y is the cost per tray of appetizers. So TY together will be that total cost of appetizers. Hopefully I spell that correctly. All right, and so then again together, and you don't need to do this because they already told you it, but if you put the PX with the TY, then you know the total amount that he would have spent on the punch and the appetizers. All right, another polynomial subtraction problem, but this one, instead of saying subtract one from the other, it's actually given it to you as the expression. So be really careful. Remember that those parentheses are important. They are there. And we can't just get rid of them without thinking about them. So think about what number is in front of those parentheses. So on that first polynomial, there's a 1. And if you distribute a 1, it doesn't change anything. So I'm just going to bring the 4x squared plus x minus 5 down. But on the next one, it's a -1. And so we're going to need to distribute that. So I'm going to kind of erase that because it almost looked like a plus sign. It still looks like a plus sign. See if I can get it a little bit more over here. There we go. So we're going to distribute the -1 to the 5x squared, which is going to make that -5x squared. And then we're going to distribute the -1 to the -1, which is going to make it turn to a +1. And then from here, we're looking for like terms. So we're going to start with the highest exponent, which is 2. So I have 4x squared minus 5x squared. Remember that when you subtract or add, you're only changing the coefficient. So we're going to do 4 minus 5, which is -1x squared. All right, then we're going to look at our x's. Well, we only have one x right there plus x, so that's just going to come on down. And then we're going to finally look at our constants. We have a -5 and a +1. -5 plus 1 is -4. So when looking for your answer, remember that they won't write a coefficient of 1, so it's just going to be -x squared plus x minus 4. So option choice C. For 18, a student takes 1.5 hours to complete her midterm. How many seconds did it take her to finish the assessment? All right, so we are converting from one to another, and there are different ways to do it, but I'm going to show you the actual conversion method. So we're going to start with the 1.5 hours. So 1.5 hours. And we're asked for seconds, so we need to go from hours to seconds. Most of you may not know how many seconds are in an hour, but you probably do know that there are 60 minutes in an hour. So I'm going to use 1 hour equals 60 minutes. I'm going to carefully place 1 hour in the bottom and 60 minutes up top. The reason I do that is so that the hours in the top eliminates with the hours in the bottom. Now that we're in minutes, we can convert to seconds because we know that there are 60 seconds and 1 minute. So again, carefully putting 1 minute in the bottom, 60 seconds in the top. Minutes are going to eliminate. Remember that the numbers don't eliminate, only the units eliminate. So at this point, we are in seconds, which is what it asked us to do. That's a bad color. Let me change that color. So we are ready to calculate the answer. So we are going to do, pulling up my calculator, give me 1 second. We're going to do 1.5 times 60 times 60. You don't need to divide by anything because in your denominator, it's just ones. And so that's going to not change your answer. So it should be 5,400, not minutes, seconds. Lola needs to sign 96 invitations using a stopwatch that measures time to tenths of a second. It takes Lola 5.3 seconds to sign her full name. Going by the accuracy of the stopwatch, which is the most important accurate determination for the number of minutes Lola needs to sign all 96 invitations. So for this one, we know that she is signing 96 invitations, so that is what we are going to start with. 96 invites. All right, and what do we know about every invitation? We know it takes her 5.3 seconds to sign her name. So one invite is 5.3 seconds. And notice where I put that one invite, I put it in the bottom so that I would eliminate with the invite in the top. And now we're in seconds. And we're looking for minutes. So for minutes, we got to go seconds to minutes. We just did that in the previous problem. There are 60 seconds in 1 minute, so 60 seconds is going to go in the bottom. That way seconds eliminates. 1 minute goes up top. Be careful not to switch it up and put 60 minutes equals 1 second. You'd be surprised, like when I say that, people are like, oh my gosh, who would do that? But it happens when you're trying to rush through it. So now we are currently in minutes, which was what the question was determine the number of minutes. So we are ready to calculate. This one does have a numerator and denominator, so I am going to use the fraction button. You can use it on your calculator, or remember, I had talked with my students about Desmos. So we're going to do 96 times 5.3 up top. If I type it in correctly, that would help. And then in the bottom, we have a 1 and a 60, so 1 times 60, but you don't really need to do 1 times 60, you could just do 60, which gives you 8.48 minutes. But we're looking for the one to the nearest tenth, so that would be 8.5 minutes. Right, for this one, it says a car travels 180 miles in 4 hours. Find the car speed in feet per minute, and you're told that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So we are going to start with 180 miles in 4 hours. And we're going to change miles to feet and hours to minutes because your goal is to do feet per minute. So we're told how to get to miles to feet, and that's by using the conversion that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And again, paying attention, I put miles in the bottom because I had miles up top. So now I'm in feet per hour, but I need to get in feet per minute. So we are going to convert from hours to minutes. We know that 1 hour has 60 minutes. Here you need to be careful because what we're trying to get rid of is hours, which is in the bottom. So I'm going to need to place the hour up top and then the 60 minutes in the bottom. When you're dealing with rates, you're going to have units both in top and bottom, and so that can be a little tricky, so you need to be extra careful. If you look at what units you have left, you have feet in the top and minutes in the bottom. That is feet per minute, so now you're ready to calculate. Again, there are numbers in both numerator and denominator, so I'm going to use the fraction button. I'm going to type in 180 times 5,280. I don't need to type in the times 1 in the top, although you could. And in the denominator, we're going to do 4 times, I'm not going to type in 1, but then times 60. And that will give you, oops, change it back to pen, 3,960 feet per minute. So 3,960 feet per minute. All right, for question 21, it says, in a test, a hybrid car drove 619 yards on 1 fluid ounce of gasoline. To the nearest tenth, what is the rate in miles per gallon? Now, I will start by telling you is if you had one like this on your test, we would give you some conversions because we are starting in yards per ounce, and we are trying to get it in miles per gallon. And you probably don't know how many yards are in a mile. You might be able to figure out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the ones that I know right off the top of my head. So for me to get to miles, I know how many feet are in a mile. We just did that one in the previous problem. So I'm actually going to take yards and turn it to feet and then go feet to miles. And then we'll worry about getting ounces to gallons in just a second. So I know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So I'm purposefully putting the yard in the bottom to eliminate the yard that I started with. And then based on the last problem that we just did, we know that there are 5,280 feet and 1 mile. So feet goes in the bottom to cancel with the feet that I just created. So now we've got the miles part of it. So now we need to concentrate on getting that ounces to gallons. Again, you probably don't know how many ounces there are in a gallon, but hopefully you know that there are 8 ounces in a cup. So I am going to use that measurement first. Ounces is in the bottom. So when I use 8 ounces, I'm going to put it up top so that I eliminate the ounces that was in the bottom. And then we could go from cups to pints to quarts to gallons. But like I said, if this were on the test, we would probably give you this conversion. There are 16 cups in 1 gallon. So I'm going to use that conversion next. And I'm going to place the 16 cups up top and the 1 gallon in the bottom. That way cups eliminates the cups that was already in the bottom. Always got to put them in the opposite place. And now when I look at it, I've got miles up top and gallons on the bottom, and you were asked for miles per gallon. So now we are ready to go to our calculator. And we definitely have numbers in top and bottom. So I'm going to hit that fraction button. Up top, I'm going to have 619 times 3 times 8 and times 16. Again, you don't need to type times 1, although you can. In the denominator, we have 1, 1. We've got a 5,280, and then we have 1 and 1 again. So if I hit enter, you'll see it's 45.0181818. It looks like repeating after that point. So we're going to round to the nearest answer, and you can see that that would be answer choice A, 45 miles per gallon. That one was definitely a little bit tougher. It's definitely a little bit longer. We would give you a little bit more information on the test to help you get from the beginning to the end. For question 22, Robert is traveling to Mexico for a family vacation. He is bringing $625 US with him. Robert needs to exchange his money for Mexico's currency, which is pesos. If the exchange rate is 13.25 pesos for every $1, how many pesos should Robert get in exchange? All right, well, let's see. He is starting with $625. And because it's US dollars, like you could write US dollars, I'm just going to use a dollar sign. And we do know that $1 in US money will get him 13.25 pesos. So that is what we're going to use. And I'm going to put that $1 in the bottom. That way the dollars will eliminate, and then that will leave me with pesos. So from here, I'm going to go to my calculator. I just need to do 625 times 13.25. I don't really need to hit the fraction button because in the bottom it's only a 1. So if I divide by 1, it's not going to change any answer. So if I do that, that will give me 8,281.25 pesos. So answer choice D. 23, a salesman makes both a base salary and also a commission. So in case you're not familiar what that means, so base salary is how much you get paid no matter what, and commission is a percentage of what you sell. And that, would vary from job to job. Like if you're a car salesman, you get a commission based on the cars that you sell. Each month, if he sells total of S dollars, he makes a total of 2,000 plus 0.1 S dollars. So we're trying to figure out what does this 2,000 mean. Oh, wrong button. All right, there is no variable on that 2,000. So that means that 2,000 is a one-time amount. So that is actually going to be his base salary, which is option A. The 0.1 is going to represent his commission percentage. So 0.1 is actually 10%. And then S is the amount of sales. So he gets 10% of his sales plus his base salary of $2,000. His total commission would be the 0.1 S. Right, for 24, you're just choosing the correct setup, which expression can be used to convert 488 miles to yards. So for this one, you need to know the miles to yards conversion. If this was on the test, we would give you that conversion. But you also need to make sure that not only are you using the right conversions, but that your units are in the right place. So if we're trying to get from miles to yards, we need to make sure that we have miles in the bottom. So the first thing I would do is look at your choices, and anything that doesn't have miles in the bottom, go ahead and eliminate that as a possibility. So B is not a possibility because yards is in the bottom, and D is not a possibility because yards is in the bottom. So between A and C, we have to decide which one's the right conversion. Well, does 1 mile equal 1,760 yards, or does it equal 5,280 yards? Based on 2 of our previous problems, hopefully you recognize that 1 mile is 5,280 feet, not yards. So that eliminates answer choice C. So it is choice A. All right, last problem. Kimberly wants to grow grass in her backyard. She is buying grass seed to plant and needs to determine the area of her backyard. What is the best unit of measurement that she could use to measure the length and width of her backyard? All right, so you think about you're going and measuring your backyard. Are you going to take a ruler and measure it in centimeters? Probably not. That would be a lot of centimeters. Kilometers are pretty big. It's not as big as a mile, but unless you have a pretty big backyard, I mean, that's 1,000 meters. So unless you have a really big backyard, you're probably not going to use kilometers. Same reasoning for miles, because miles are even bigger than a kilometer. So most people, I would say a foot would be the most reasonable measurement for your backyard, unless you just happen to live on a ton of land, which in Milton, I know there are people who do, so maybe a different measurement would be more appropriate for you, but generally speaking, feet would be the most appropriate unit for this. So I hope you found all of this very helpful. Good luck on your test. I know you're going to do awesome. If you found that you can get through all of these problems, you should feel really prepared for your test.